أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
إن الحمد لله نحمده تعالى ونستعينه ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمدًا عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة وجاهد في الله حق جهاده وارض اللهم عن الصحابة والتابعين وتابعيهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The title of the khutbah today is Muslims' Political Participation. And the reason I chose this title is, number one, there are several reasons, but number one, we all see what's going on in Gaza. More than a year of constant killing and destruction and mayhem brought upon our brothers in Gaza. And the political establishment before the military establishment in this country refuses to do anything. On the contrary, they are actually aiding and abetting the process. They are partners. They are partners in the crime. And the unfortunate part here is that we as a community, a huge community, counting over 10 million, have been unable to do anything about it. I've made this the main topic of my khutbah over the last year, but today I'm going to focus on the part of this conversation that has to do with the elections. There's no doubt that most of us feel guilty that we are unable, because we are unable to do anything. We are unable to affect change. And many of us threw their hands in the air and they're like, ما بالإمكان أحسن ما كان اليد القصيرة والعين بصيرة اليد قصيرة. We have all these axioms that we use to justify our inability. The hand doesn't, cannot confront whatever the nail. I mean, there's all kinds of nonsense that we share. The truth is, there's also another group among us who believe that by taking advantage of the elections and the political process, we can make a difference. So there's at least these two sides in this argument. And this has been going on for quite some time in this country. Muslims have been debating this question for at least 60 years. 60. I was able to trace the literature back more than 60 years. The debate has been going on, should we or shouldn't we? Should we participate or shouldn't we participate? So today I have two messages. One message to those who are part of the game, who participate, and another message, which is the lengthy one, to those who refuse to participate. For the ones who participate, my message to them is that it is not permissible Islamically for us to accuse each other and to attack each other based on what choices we made. It's that simple. I heard an African American imam from Michigan who has a friend who decided to vote for the orange man, and you know who I'm talking about. And he said, in the beginning, I was mad at him. Then I realized that his intention is to punish the other side by voting for this man. So in other words, the intention may be correct, even if the deed itself may not be right. And that means that we cannot judge each other, accuse each other, attack each other, unfriend each other on Facebook and other places because of somebody taking one position or the other. You want to participate, that's your ijtihad, go ahead and do it. Allah knows your niyyah, Allah knows why you're doing it. Jazakallahu khairan. Don't blame me, don't judge me, don't judge your brother, don't break your relationships. Allah Azza wa Jalla in the Quran says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Surah Ash-Shura, which I spoke about in the last khutbah. شرع لكم من الدين ما وصى به نوحا والذي أوحينا إليك وما وصينا به إبراهيم وموسى وعيسى أن أقيموا الدين ولا تتفرقوا فيه. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, it is the shara of Allah, it is the deen of Allah that you establish the deen. أقيموا الدين. But in the same sentence, in the same vein, what does it say? ولا تتفرقوا فيه. Do not do a bad thing while you're doing a good thing. You want to do good for the community, fine, but don't start fighting over it. وَلَا تَتَفَرَّقُوا فِيهِ. At the end, the ayah ends where Allah Azza wa Jal says, اللَّهُ يَجْتَبِي إِلَيْهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي إِلَيْهِ مَنْ يُنِيبُ. Then guidance is from Allah Azza wa Jal. If somebody is guided the wrong way, that's their ijtihad, that's their decision. Leave it to them and to Allah Azza wa Jal. Whether they are rewarded or they're punished, this is between them and Allah Azza wa Jal. Do not judge. What's interesting, ya ikhwa, about this ayah, it's chapter 49, by the way, Surah Shura. And it's ayah 13, if you want to go back to it. What's interesting about this surah, I mentioned it in the last khutbah, and some of you may remember, is that Surah Shura, and Shura means consultation. So the surah was revealed in Mecca, where there was practically no need for shura. To send us a message that the concept of shura is innate and foundational in Islam, even when there is no governance going on that warrants shura. And aqimu ad-din wa la tatafarraqu fi. Shara'a lakum min ad-din. In other words, it's in all affairs, small and big. Because some people may think that shura is, well, when we have, organized activity and leadership and this and that, then we'll conduct shura. No, shura is between you and your wife and your children, your neighbors and your cousins. And in the masjid, shura should be everywhere. We should be able to come together and talk about the issues without getting into a fight with each other. And wallahi, akhwa, 90% of the reason why we can't conduct shura properly, number one, in my opinion, is cultural. Many of us, more than 75% of our community are immigrants or children of immigrants. That's a fact. That's a fact. Many of us who are immigrants or children of immigrants, we came from countries where the concept of shura is non-existent, where there is one tyrant sitting at the top, one dictator sitting at the top. وَمَا أُرِيكُمْ إِلَّا مَا أَرَى وَمَا أَهْدِيكُمْ إِلَّا سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ. No difference from Fir'aun. That's it. So we come from a culture like that into a place where it's available, and we are unable to do it because we haven't been raised with the concept of shura. A concept so important that Allah Azza wa Jal named a single surah after it. Think about it, ya akhwa. The surah is named Ash-Shura for a reason. The Quran names An-Nisa, Surah An-Nisa, to elevate women in a society that didn't respect women. The naming of the surahs is very important. It's very important. Ali Imran, to bring our attention to Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam and his lineage and everything around Sayyidina Isa. Anyway, so the concept of shura is a very important concept. And for those people who decide to participate, jazakumullahu khairan, just don't blame and don't judge. Now let's talk about the brothers who refuse to participate. And I'm not talking just about voting. I'm talking about political participation in general. And it's a term much bigger than voting. And I don't want you to think that I'm speaking without knowledge in this area. My PhD is in this subject. I spent 11 years studying political participation of the Muslim community, specifically the Muslim community. So I'm going to share a few things with you that seem a little bit academic, but we need to understand. And I was reluctant to do that, but we need to have this conversation. Number one, Islam, ya ikhwa, there are 30% in our community. This is based on Pew's research, my own research, and other research over the last 20 years. 30% of the Muslim community believes that Islam and democracy are incompatible. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other. And by saying that, they're basically saying, I don't want to get involved. Islam and democracy are incompatible. Taha Jabr al-Alwani, rahimahullah, one of the greatest scholars who lived in the United States, he just passed away. He spent more than 40 years here. And if I had to count the top 3 jurists in the United States over the last 50 years, he would be one of them. That's Taha Jabr al-Alwani. And I met him in 1980, and he has books in Arabic and in English. And he lived in this country, so he understood the context of the fatwa. The question that he was asked, I'm going to phrase it exactly the way he received it. Can Muslim minorities, in general, not just here, in Europe, Australia, everywhere, can Muslim minorities participate in the political life of a host country, where non-Muslims form a majority, as we are here? 340 million are not Muslims, right? And where the political system is non-Islamic. No one will call the American system an Islamic system. So Taha Jabr al-Alwani, being the scholar that he is, he said the question is wrong. He said, let's rephrase the question. And I'm going to read it verbatim to you to show you that the way you ask the question is very important. He said, what if we said this? What if we said, what is Islam's view? Because that's the better way to ask a question. What does Islam say about this, right? What is Islam's view regarding a group of Muslims who find themselves, a group of Muslims like us, who find themselves living among a non-Muslim majority, just like us, whose system of government, not kafir, no, whose system of government allows them, pay attention to the word allows them, meaning who? Us, to observe and exercise all Islamic obligations. Otherwise, we won't be here. There won't be any masjid. 3,000 masjid in America. So no one can say that they are not allowing us. There are Muslim countries where you are not allowed to wear the hijab or to establish a masjid. Muslim countries. And here we are, 3,000 masjid. So he continues, allows them to observe and exercise all Islamic obligations that do not threaten public order, of course. Furthermore, here's the important part. The system allows the Muslim minority to attain public office. How many Muslim mayors are out there? Well, Barack Obama became president, but he's not a Muslim. Anyway, so to attain public office, influence public policy. Put 3 lines under the word influence. Influence public policy, assume leadership positions. Many of our brothers are mayors, quite a few here in New Jersey. And what else? And propagate their beliefs. We can do da'wah all day long. Nobody is stopping you from making da'wah. And set up useful Islamic institutions. Literally thousands of Islamic institutions in this country. Here's the question now. Should such a minority like us relinquish these rights? Should we say, no, thank you very much? Because in essence, that's what many of us are doing. Should such a minority relinquish these rights and decline those opportunities? تتنازل عنها كده مش عاوزين. For fear of assimilation, whatever reason, fear of assimilation, أحسن ما نختلط فيهم كده وبعدين يصيبنا لوثة, okay? For fear of assimilation into the non-Muslim majority or being influenced by them. So that's what Taha Jabir Al-Alwani said in 2004. Anybody wants to see his book, I'll show it to you. So here's the problem. No one will answer and say, yes, let's relinquish everything. Once you turn the question around, ya akhwa, it's very clear. We have certain rights. By not participating, we're saying thank you very much. Now that's kind of like too academic and too high level. I'm going to simplify it for all of us. Let's first define what is political participation, because the khutbah is about that. The definition is very simple. The ability to choose public officials or to influence their decision. That's all there is to it. So some of us would say, I don't want to elect a zalim. That's fine, ya akhi, don't elect a zalim. Skip the first line. The one about the president, skip that. What about the rest? What about the rest? I want to share a couple of things with you that will surprise many. And by the way, what Taha Jabir Al-Alwani was talking about, ya akhwa, and this political participation, how different is it from al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar? Doesn't the Quran say, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر? If you don't believe in participating, how are you going to perform the duty of al-amr bil-ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar? Could you please enlighten us? That's rhetorical, but it's really a real message. I would love one of those brothers to stand on the minbar and say, do not get involved in politics. Here's how you do amr bil ma'ruf wa nahy anil munkar. Especially after you hear the example I'm going to give you. Here's the part that a lot of you don't know. A lot of people think there's one government in this country. Some think there's 50 state and one federal. It may shock you to know that there's 87,000 governments in this country. Yes, I said it right. 87,000. When we talk about political participation, ya akhwa, we're not only talking about electing mayors and governors and president. It's a lot more dangerous than that. Here's something many of you don't realize. You see, in our countries, I grew up in Jordan. I finished high school in Jordan. There's a Ministry of Education, Wazarat Tarbiyah wa Ta'lim. The Ministry of Education decides the curriculum, decides whether your kids should read Quran or not, Sunnah, Hadith, Geography, history, all of those things that we study. They don't have that in America. Surprise? There's no such thing. In America, every municipality, not even every state, every small little town has its own board of education that decides what your children get to study. In other words, when you do not elect your board of education, somebody else is doing that. They are putting people in the board of education who make decisions on what your child is going to read, what your child is going to learn, who is going to teach your child. And here's another one that's going to make you shiver in the spine. They will make decisions. It's coming. It's already happening around the country. It started in California. They make decisions on who gets into the bathroom when your daughter is using the bathroom or changing her hijab or whatever. The guy behind her could be a guy calling himself a girl. All right? We have this thing called gender fluidity that's going on in this country. Which means that if somebody wants to call himself a cat, he's a cat. If he wants to call himself a girl, he's a girl. And he's a male. He's a man. You can tell it's a man. And yet he is in the bathroom 2 feet away from your daughter. Who makes that decision? You do, if you want to. You're the one who goes and elects the Board of Education. You're the one who gets to put people on the Board of Education. When our brothers and sisters in Teaneck decided, they took over the entire Board of Education because this topic was sensitive to them. Once they realized that it's not just about choosing the books and poetry and math and this and that, it has to do more with other things, such as things that have to do with gender identity, and all these issues. Ya ikhwa, it's all in your hands. And wallahi, broke my heart to hear my brother Wael just a few minutes ago tell me that in Union there's 12,000 Muslims, that in the last election 300 people participated. Ya ikhwa, that means that 11,700 relinquished their right to choose who the Board of Education is, who the mayor is, who the chief of police is, who all of these things are within your control. These are your rights. Our ancestors, their brothers and sisters in the civil rights movement, going back to the 1800s, they sacrificed their lives to acquire these rights for you and me. To walk away from them and to refuse to participate is to reject the legacy of our African American brothers who sacrificed their lives in this country. And wallahi, that's wrong. Wallahi, that's wrong. And we will be asked about this, just like we will be asked about our money and our, you know, the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لن تزول قدم عبد حتى يسأل عن أربع. On the day of judgment, you will not be allowed to move 1 inch until you are asked about 4 things. We'll be asked about things like our health, our wealth, all the resources that we have that we used improperly or didn't use at all. This is a resource that we have, the ability to elect our public officials, the people that make decisions about ourselves and our children, the people that make decisions whether to send 2,000 pound bombs to Gaza are elected officials. They are people that you and I get to put in place, or at least influence. This is their decision. The reason we are unable to influence this decision is because they have our history and they know that we do not participate. So we scream loud, we demonstrate, we do all that we do, and they're saying, don't even worry about these people. They won't amount to anything. And that's very shameful. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فيا فوز المستغفرين. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. I don't want to leave you on a low note. I'm not known to want to depress people. I always like people to leave on a positive note. I really believe, and I've believed for at least 20 years. I've been in this country 50 years. But at least for the last 20 years, I believe that there is a solution to the dilemma. I'm not Pollyannic. I don't dream. I actually have a vision that one day we will have one single strong organization representing us. Inshallah. And I know how it could be done. I know the wrong way to do it, which is how a lot of people think it should be done, because it's not their specialization. But I specialized, so I can share with you something I learned. You do not build a large, united Muslim organization by bringing together 3,000 smaller organizations. It doesn't work like that. Ever since the split between Sayyidina Ali and Muawiyah, we haven't come together. So let's not kid ourselves. Ibn Khaldun dedicated his entire book, The History of the World, and his Muqaddimah to explaining why we can never come together on everything. That's just our human nature. That's just human nature. But what I know for a fact, ya ikhwa, is that the largest organizations in this country, and hear me clearly here, and I'm going to give you examples. Organizations like the American Heart Association, the Cancer Society, Brother Weil would know this, Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of America, there's 1.5 million of them. The most powerful, the largest ones, were not little tiny ones that came together. They started with one single organization with a big mission and strong leadership. And once they perfected that model in one city, then they said, let's make copies of this. And we know how to do this in our business. Look at the halal guys. Our brothers, the halal guys, started with small little carts in New York City. You would go at 2 o'clock in the morning and there's a line from here to the next avenue. Many of you know what I'm talking about. Standing there to buy their sandwich. Once they saw how it works, then they perfected it. They started copying it. MashaAllah, it's a franchise. The concept of franchising can easily be adopted for us to build a strong national organization. All we need as for leadership is one town in America, be it Chicago, New York, even Union, to start building a strong organization with a single mission. And that mission should be something like make Muslims strong again or great again. Something simple. Once you perfect it, and it may take a year or 2 or 3 to put it together. Once you perfect it, copying it 500 times is the easiest thing in the world, ya akhwa. That's how large organizations are built. They don't come together from fragments into one big one. That doesn't happen. The way it happens is you start with one, you perfect. I hope and pray to Allah Azza wa Jal that someone out there smart enough will heed my advice. I suggested this 20 years ago, and it was rejected. Had we adopted it, I still have my notes. Today we'd be in a different place. All we need is one single strong organization with a single mission, with strong leadership, and then start copying it, and you'll see what happens. Paul Findlay, a congressman from Minnesota, in 1982, he and Charles Percy visited Lebanon to see the devastation that took place when the Israelis occupied South Lebanon, destroyed Lebanon. He saw the cluster bombs, he saw all. He came back, and they managed to get him to lose his seat. After 25 years in Congress, he was kicked out of Congress. He wrote a book called, he wrote at least 3 books. But the first one was called They Dared to Speak Out. You can pick up a copy. And in the book, he suggested the exact idea that I just suggested to you. The only difference is he didn't talk about how, the details, but this is what he said. He said, if you guys want to make a difference in America, 1982, ya ikhwa, that's more than 40 years ago. He said, you have to build a strong national presence with local leadership, franchised, meaning if one is shut down, they cannot shut down the other one, independently owned and operated. I don't want to give you too much detail, but the idea is there. The problem with our community is we're not looking for answers. We are looking to pontificate and give our opinion. وَلَا حَوْلَ وَلَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. We need to change that. We need to make the niyyah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. Allah will not change our lot until we change ourselves. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فيا فوز المستغفرين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين وعلى فضلك كلمة الحق والدين ووفقنا لما تحب وترضاه يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا رب من أراد بالإسلام والمسلمين خيرا فوفقه إلى كل خير ومن أراد بالإسلام والمسلمين سوءا فخذه أخذ عزيز مقتدر. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم واستغفروه يغفر لكم. وأنت يا أخي أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استقيموا رحمكم الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Dear brothers, for the first time, inshallah, we are starting this coming up Wednesday. Every Wednesday, 6 p.m., we're starting a basic Islamic teaching for converts. This lecture will be led by Brother Giovanni. Brother Giovanni, he knows English, little Arabic, beside his original language, Spanish. So if you know anyone that needs some education in Islamic studies, basic Islamic teaching, please show him the way. Please. Jazakumullah khair. No. In here. Live. In here. In person. Jazakumullah khair. It's this coming up Wednesday and every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Yes. Both genders. Men and women. Children, older, it's all basic studies, so all ages also. Jazakumullah.